Faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. The assurance of things hoped for. Wouldn't that be great? I mean, call into your mind that one thing that you really hope for. No, more than that. Call into your mind, if you can, everything you hope for. All the things you hope for. Everything being the way you want it to be. And now feel the assurance that that's the way it is, or will surely come to be. Blessed assurance. It's called in a hymn. Isn't that great? Doesn't that feel wonderful? Wouldn't that be great if we could be assured of all that we hope for? That's not faith, but it would be great. The passage from Hebrews is meant, if seen in its context, to shift the aim of Jewish faith from the temple and the fulfillment of the law and the settlement of the promised land to the life and teaching and promise of the kingdom found in Jesus. That's what today's epistle is saying. And it's a misinterpretation of this passage and others as an affirmation of faith as an element in a process of wish fulfillment. And that misinterpretation is central to what has come to be a particularly widespread, particularly American kind of heresy. Mary Baker Eddy and Christian Science, from there on to Donald Trump and his father's take on Norman Vincent Peale's power of positive thinking, to Marianne Williamson's take on the New Age Course in Miracles, to Joel Osteen's prosperity gospel megachurches in Houston. The idea of faith as a way to get what we want is self-serving and shallow and an insult to the cross. I said last week or a couple weeks ago, that's not what prayer is for. And I'm saying today that's not what faith is for. But that's okay. It's okay. We don't want faith simply to be the assurance of things we hope for. We don't want it to be an element in our trying to realize a good lifestyle. You've heard the expression, be careful what you hope for? You know who invented that expression? God. God invented that expression. I mean, look at history. Look at the world. So let's look further. Mark Twain said, faith is believing in things you know ain't so. Now, Twain was funny. He's more bitter than I am. His skepticism about religion verges on a cynicism about humanity, but he can be pretty funny. The thing is, though, that his comment on faith is based on a definition of faith as an assertion of facts that haven't been proven. An assertion of facts that maybe can't be proven. That constitute, at least in Twain's way of seeing it, a lower level knowledge than the truth that we discover through reason. But that's not faith either. Our creeds, statements of belief, granted couched in a language and philosophical outlet that's at least 1,500 years old, but our creeds, our ritual practices, the stories passed on in our tradition through the scripture and less formally through family and culture, aren't meant as data or information, aren't meant to be factual statements like the results of scientific experimentation. Creeds, these statements of belief and religious practices, what we're doing here today, are meant to lead us and guide us through the acquisition of and response in our lives to faith. But they're not the objects of faith. Faith isn't the same as believing, whether these beliefs are so or not so. Neither is faith an institutional program, as in the faith, the Christian faith. A Christian nation, a Christian culture, onward Christian soldiers. That's not faith. The church is not the faith. The tradition of faith is not the faith. Again, these are places where we can discover faith. They offer tools for the enhancement of faith. They hold us in love when we're short of faith, but they're not faith. Faith is a relationship. It's a verb, not a noun. Or rather, like hope and love, it's a verb before it became a noun. It's something we do before it's something we have. Or in the case of faith, hope, and love, it's something we do before it's something that has us. That doesn't make faith any easier to practice. I've had some success kind of explaining the creeds and justifying the sacraments to people who don't get it. But my relationship with God hasn't been that easy. Faith as relationship requires a bigger leap than believing in some ancient creed, a bigger leap than commitment to a church community made up of people you may or may not like very well. A bigger leap than the intention and focus required for the practice of worship. The root words of faith, for faith, in Greek and Latin, even in ancient Proto-European, all imply trust. Faith is a trusting relationship. Those words don't really have their origin in a sense of belief. It's trust. And trust is hard, right? Especially these days. Trust requires that we become open, that we become vulnerable. Because trust isn't just thinking, it's not trust in something. It's not trust that, if I get good grades, my dad's going to give me something or whatever. It's just trust. It's letting go. I've always been fine with thinking about faith, thinking about God, but trusting was really always pretty hard for me, trusting, in people and God and myself. I found it hard to think of the source of all that is, all creation, beyond the universe, beyond time, beyond space, which is how I understand God. I find it hard to understand that magnificence, that greatness, that awesomeness, as having a kind of personality that would call forth trust, that would be able to relate. Hard to see that whole thing as being alive somehow. I realized it was hard for me after a while because I saw personality as a kind of defect. I saw human life as limiting, my own life disappointing compared with abstract dreams, compared with these grand sort of thoughts that I babble on about on Sundays. I was raised in a materialistic culture with a scientific educational bias, averse to emotional risk. I built a wall around my soul. It was only when life got scary enough. It was only when I became lonely enough that I was willing to venture out from behind that wall before I could listen to that constant call from God. God's grace calling forth trust and love. And with it came a sense of the life and personality of all creation. And strangely enough, I think for a lot of people, the route to relationship with God, to faith and love, comes through the expansion of their relationship with other people. For me, it was kind of the reverse. It was only after I found the love and connection with God that I was able to be open to other people. Sometimes beliefs and creeds, church and community rituals and sacraments have enhanced the relationship. Sometimes they've actually gotten in the way. Sometimes I've tried very desperately to rebuild the wall, wondering what have I done, and try to go back into hiding. But it doesn't ever really work, and you can't really hide from God. The relationship's always there. From whom no secrets are hid. The love of God is always holding us in grace, whether we recognize that or not, or respond to it or not. The grace of God is always flowing to us and will break through however thick a wall we build and touch our souls again and again and again, as often as needed, renewing our faith. Maybe only for moments before the blinders kind of fall back in. But those moments are moments in eternity, and they are true. You don't have to think about it a lot. Just start talking. And that's more than anything I could hope for. Thanks be to God.